Christmas had always been my favorite holiday. Every year, my parents gathered the whole family around the fireplace, exchanged gifts, laughed over old memories, and reminded us that family always came first. At least, that's what I believed. That Christmas morning started like every other. My younger sister Emily walked in wearing designer clothes my parents had bought her. She smiled confidently while everyone admired the giant envelope sitting beneath the Christmas tree with her name written in gold letters. I wasn't jealous. Not yet. Then my father cleared his throat. "We've made a decision," he announced. My mother squeezed Emily's hand. "We're giving her the downtown condo." I laughed, assuming it was a joke. It wasn't. The same condo I'd spent 5 years helping renovate. The same condo my parents had repeatedly promised would be mine because I'd invested my own savings into fixing it. It was worth over $350,000. My stomach dropped. "Dad, you told me it was my future home." He wouldn't even look me in the eyes. "Plans change." Emily smirked. "You already have a decent apartment." I reminded them that I'd paid nearly $40,000 toward renovations, property taxes, and repairs. Mom simply replied, "Think of it as helping your sister." Helping. I had practically rebuilt the place with my own hands. That night I couldn't sleep. Instead, I opened the safe where my parents had asked me to keep all the renovation contracts, receipts, ownership paperwork, and power of attorney documents while they were traveling months earlier. As I carefully read every page, one signature caught my attention. One forgotten document, one legal mistake, and suddenly, I realized the condo wasn't as untouchable as everyone believed. The next morning, I drove straight to the lawyer's office with every document neatly organized in a folder. He spent nearly an hour reading through the paperwork without saying much. Finally, he looked up and asked, "Did your parents ever tell you they transferred the title into your sister's name?" "No," I replied. "They announced it on Christmas morning." He nodded slowly. "That's a problem for them." My heart raced. According to the documents, the condo had never actually been transferred. Even more surprising, months earlier my father had signed a limited power of attorney allowing me to handle the property's paperwork while they were overseas. He had forgotten to revoke it. The lawyer explained that my parents' Christmas announcement was just that, an announcement. Legally, nothing had changed yet. Then he uncovered another surprise. Every dollar I'd invested in the condo was documented with signed agreements stating I would either be reimbursed or receive ownership if the property was ever transferred. Those signatures were real. Those contracts were enforceable. Suddenly, the balance of power shifted. Over the next few days, my lawyer contacted my parents, offering them a simple choice: honor the agreement or repay every cent I'd invested, plus the increase in the property's value that my renovations had created. Instead of negotiating, they laughed. My father called me ungrateful. My mother accused me of ruining Christmas. Emily posted online about her new condo before she even had the keys. That was their biggest mistake. Because while they were celebrating a gift that legally wasn't hers, my lawyer was quietly preparing the paperwork that would change everything before New Year's. None of them saw it coming. 3 days before New Year's Eve, my lawyer called. "Everything is ready." I took a deep breath and signed the final documents. Because my parents had ignored the agreements they had signed and failed to complete a legal transfer to Emily, the dispute was settled through a binding agreement. I was compensated for my investment by taking ownership of the condo, just as the original paperwork allowed. I didn't celebrate. I simply listed the condo for sale. Within 48 hours, a cash buyer made an offer that was almost impossible to refuse. The deal closed just before New Year's. By the time my family realized what had happened, the money was already in my account and the new owner had received the keys. That evening, my phone exploded with calls. My father shouted, "How could you sell our condo?" I answered calmly, "The one you promised me, then gave away. It isn't yours anymore." Emily screamed that I'd stolen her future. I reminded her of one simple fact. You can't lose something that was never legally yours. For the first time in years, no one had an answer. A week later, we met at my grandparents' house for a family dinner. The atmosphere was icy. Everyone expected my grandparents to take my parents' side. Instead, Grandpa quietly stood up and asked one question. "Who paid for those renovations?" "I did," I answered. "Who kept every receipt and every contract?" "I did." He turned to my parents. "Then why did you think she should walk away with nothing?" Silence filled the room. Even relatives who had criticized me began to realize they had only heard one side of the story. But just when I thought it was finally over, Grandpa reached into his briefcase, placed an old envelope on the table, and said, "There's one more thing your parents never told either of you." The room went completely silent. Grandpa slowly slid the envelope across the table. "Open it," he said. My hands trembled as I unfolded the papers inside. It was his original estate plan, signed years before. The condo had never been meant as a gift for either me or Emily. Instead, Grandpa had written a simple condition: whichever grandchild showed the most responsibility, honesty, and respect for the family's hard work would eventually receive financial support to build their own future. He looked directly at my parents. "I trusted you to be fair. Instead, you turned my wishes into favoritism." My mother burst into tears. My father lowered his head, unable to speak. Then Grandpa smiled at me. "You didn't win because you sold the condo. You won because you stood up for yourself the right way, through the law, not revenge." He reached into his jacket and handed me another envelope. Inside was a certified check for $500,000. "This was always meant to help you buy a home of your own. I was waiting until I knew you were ready." I was speechless. Emily quietly whispered, "I'm sorry." For the first time in years, her confidence had disappeared. She admitted she'd known our parents treated us differently but had never questioned it. A few months later, I bought a beautiful home using Grandpa's gift and part of the money from the condo sale. I also started a small business I'd dreamed about for years. As for my parents, rebuilding our relationship took time. They eventually apologized, not because they lost the condo, but because they finally understood that trust is far more valuable than any property. That Christmas taught me a lesson I'll never forget. The greatest inheritance isn't a house or money, it's having the courage to protect your self-respect, even when the people you love disappoint you. 6 months later, I thought the entire ordeal was behind me. Then, one Saturday morning, someone knocked on my front door. It was Emily. She wasn't wearing designer clothes anymore. There was no expensive handbag, no confident smile, just a folder clutched tightly in her hands. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. Over coffee, she admitted the truth. Our parents borrowed against the condo months before Christmas. They were drowning in debt, and giving it to me was supposed to hide what was really happening. I stared at her in disbelief. They thought if I owned it, no one would ask questions. Emily slid the folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, loan documents, and letters from creditors. I can't keep pretending everything is fine, she whispered. You deserve the truth. A week later, our parents invited us both over. This time, there were no excuses. Dad admitted he'd made terrible financial decisions trying to maintain a lifestyle he couldn't afford. Instead of asking for help, he chose favoritism and secrecy. I was ashamed, he said. Mom wiped away tears. We almost lost both of our daughters because of our pride. For the first time in years, the conversation wasn't about money. It was about honesty. Walking out of their house that evening, Emily looked at me and smiled. Maybe this Christmas won't be remembered for the condo after all. I smiled back. No. It'll be remembered as the day our family finally stopped lying to each other.